Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live stream. Today is the 12th of April 2019. It is Friday. Now, am I in sync? I don't know, with this OBS software it's really been annoying. But if it's not in sync, I have to shut OBS down and back up again. I don't know what's up with that, but we'll find out here in just a minute. It has been a difficult day to get started. I tried to get started at 1 o'clock. I've been inundated with phone calls and emails, and unfortunately that has pulled me away from making the broadcast. That being said, I'm here now, and hopefully, anybody else who emails or calls, they're just gonna have to wait. So thank you guys for being patient as we get today off to a start. And I have a machine here that was sent by a viewer that they're having some frustrations with. And they have a laptop or two that they just use, and they just couldn't be motivated to figure this out. And they thought it might make for a good video for me to figure it out for them. And that's what it looks like inside. Not a very good case. There's not really any room for cable management in here. And what is this? That's not even a computer screw. I don't know why that's in there. And there was some damage. This whole thing is bowed out the way it was shipped. I think this is how it must have happened in shipping. We got a big mess going on in here, and one of the first things that I do when I get a machine that's acting funny is disconnect everything. And I want to get all these cables out of the way. And I can tell this motherboard power cable gets right in the way of this hard disk drive. That's not a good case. And he warned me. He said, I know you're not going to like this case. And he sent me a different case to build, to move the parts in. And we'll get to that in a minute. And so we got a Wi-Fi card down here. And I'm going to show you. Now, I haven't even turned this on. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know what the symptoms are. But we're going to just start with the basics on a system like this. I don't even want to turn it on to verify the customer complaint because of the way it looks on the inside. I can't see anything, and that makes it really, really hard to diagnose if I can't see. So to simplify the diagnostic process, I want to clear away all the clutter, and that means getting this drive out of here so I can get these cables pulled. I want to pull this power supply as well, so I can just see the board and what's going on with the board. If this hard drive was located... Gosh, if it was located down here, it would get in the way worse. If it was located up here, it would be out of the way, but there's no way to mount it. So it's just a badly designed case. And the way it arrived out of the box, the shipping box, this whole front piece was busted. Like, it wasn't busted, but it was, yeah, I think it is broken. Because it doesn't quite clip on correctly anymore either. So, I don't know what this is. This is... I guess this lights up this O that's right here. And it shows, like, I don't know, there's like a piece of tape or something. This must just be a light. I don't know. But I'll just slap it back on there. It doesn't really stay in place. It's just the little plastic tabs that hold it have been broken. And I don't know if it was shipped that way or if it happened in shipping. It just was not packed very well. It was a big enough box, don't get me wrong. It was the packing that wasn't right. A couple of things I see right now I don't like are Molex to SATA connectors. That tells me this is the wrong power supply. What this tells me is this power supply is about 15 or 20 years old, and that motherboard's much newer. And when you try and make old hardware work with new hardware, you're going to have frustration. I guarantee it. Anytime you carry over, like let's say you're building a new system and you want to take your old hard drive and move it, that old hard drive will be the first part of your new system that will fail. I can't say when, but it'll more than likely statistically be the first part that will fail. So, and it'll also, if it's an older drive, slow the whole system down every time you go to access it, or even slow the boot time down. So there is a cost you're paying to save money, and you're paying for it, and I'll say this as many times as I have to, you're paying for it with your time. And after you spend so much time, you get frustrated, and then you send it to me for repair. And one of the first things I'm going to recommend you do is buy some quality components. Quality components don't cost but a few dollars more. It's not like It's not like you can afford the $20 power supply, but not the $30 power supply. It's not like I'm saying to you, you need to buy a $150 power supply, because I'm not saying that. I'm saying to stop going to the extreme cheap, and I'm not saying you solve that by going to the extreme expensive. I'm saying you find that middle ground. You know, you pick what's right. That's the best bang for the buck. Stop shopping for the cheapest price, because that's what this looks like. This looks like somebody said, how cheap can I get a case? Maybe the case came with this power supply. I don't know. Maybe I had a power supply laying around so I don't have to buy one. It's a very critical component, this power supply. Any power supply is a critical. You don't go cheap on a critical component. Your monitor is how your computer communicates to you. You have a keyboard and your mouse. That's how you communicate to your computer. For some people with a microphone. But the way your computer communicates back to you is through your monitor. So don't buy a cheap monitor. And if you're relying on the computer day in and day out, don't buy cheap components on the inside that you will be psychologically upset, that it'll put you in a bad mood, and you're going to feel angry when it doesn't work. Spend just a little bit more. That's all I'm suggesting. Just a little bit more money, just a tiny little bit more. It's about 15 to 20% more, and have a system that's rock solid, stable, and will remain that way for 5 to 8 years. 15 to 20% makes the difference between a system that is unreliable and frustrating to a system that is enjoyable and the best system you ever owned. Seriously, I can tell you from experience, what you save in money, you pay for in time. What is going on with this? What is this? I've never seen that before. So apparently, the way that the geniuses who developed this case wanted to draw power for this little light down here, is they decided to pull it off the motherboard power connector. That's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. I want to solve this problem, guys. This is really, really bad. This absolutely is unacceptable. So here's what I'm going to do to solve this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to disconnect it. And we're going to get it out of here and we're going to get this piece out. And again, it's going to be easier to work on. Let's get the SATA cables out of the way. Let's get this out and this out. See what a tangled web we weave. Oh, there's another SATA cable here, so there's 3 of them in there. There was only 2 drives. We've got a Wi-Fi card. We don't need that for testing purposes. We can come back to that when everything's working and done. And if we're going to move the components to a different case, it has to come out anyway. When you diagnose a system, you want to do everything as basic as possible. You want to remove all potential culprits as to the cause of the problem. So you want to just have the very bare minimum of what you need to boot up. So I don't need a front port USB to boot up or disconnect it. I do need a power supply, but I don't need this power supply. I don't know what this power supply is, but I don't like it. It doesn't have the right connectors on it. And it looks like it's 15 or 20 years old. But let's take a look at how old this power supply really is. There's probably a date on it. And I want to see who makes it. Because the difference between a no-name brand, unreliable, or fluctuating power supply to a name brand is only a couple of dollars these days. So why risk the entire investment in your computer because you didn't want to spend an extra $15 on a power supply, right? So this is, well, I'm just going to show you. Has anybody heard of this brand before? Can anybody tell me where is this company located? If I wanted to reach them for an RMA, can anybody tell me a website where I can go to get support for honoring a warranty? Modern power supplies don't have this switch for 110 volts or 220 volts. Modern power supplies can sense what's been plugged in and adapt accordingly to their environment. So I'm going to stick with probably 15 to 20 years old. I don't see a date anywhere on it, but I'm going to guess 15 to 20. There's a sticker on the bottom. And unless the components in here are 15 to 20 years old, you're just going down a bad street. It would be like the doctor giving you some medication, and then you take the medication like a diet pill. Let's say you're taking a diet pill, and then you go to buffets every night with the cheapest food you can buy and stuff yourself until you can't eat anymore. You need to pick one or the other, you know? That's all I'm saying. Now, if you're an experienced technician looking for a challenge, buy the cheapest stuff you can buy, and that will challenge you. If you're a first-time builder, do not buy the cheapest stuff you can buy, because you will regret it. You will say, I should have never. Carey said this was easy. Carey said that I was going to enjoy this. Carey also said, don't buy the cheapest stuff. And Carey also said, don't buy the most expensive stuff. Right? So if you look at my parts list and you see some examples of what I build, use those as your example. That's all. So I'm going to set the power supply. Let's set that back here. And I guess I can leave the board in there for now. We've got a cheap case fan back here. We've got some kind of Intel power supply that's not plugged in correctly. Look at it. It's just, can you tell? It's just, these two prongs are not plugged into the board. So, I don't know if they're broken. Let's take a look at that real quick and see what's going on here. I want to remove this rear fan. I'm done with this rear fan. It's just in my way. I want everything out of my way. I have no intention on ever using this case, even on a giveaway, because it'd be like giving somebody the flu. You're not helping them if you give them something like this. You're actually causing more issue. Like, oh, I just gave my friend a 20-year-old computer to live off of. It's not doing your friend a favor, trust me. I know the intention is there, but it just isn't. Let's take a look and see what we've got going on in here. Will these go back on? That one's good. That one went in. Okay, that feels better. Now we have 4 different RAM modules in here, so I'm going to pop 2 of these modules out. Now this can be another problem. These 2 are paired up, and then these 2 are paired up, and this one's hanging out of the system. So I'm going to remove it entirely and then seat it back down, because that's the only way I know that it's in there properly, and I'm going to do the same thing to the remainder. Now these RAM modules are from Crucial, and there are 2 identical Crucial modules like this. And then the other 2 look like they came out of an HP or a Compaq or a Dell. So we're going to keep 2 out, and we're going to just start with 2. If you're having a problem with a system not starting correctly, the first thing you want to do is isolate your RAM. Again, we don't need 8 gigs of RAM. We want 8 gigs of RAM, but just to get the system to fire up. If it won't fire up with those 2, then we'll take those 2 out, put the other 2 in. Once we get it to fire up from either side, then we know we have a compatibility issue or a RAM issue with a bad module. And RAM cannot be repaired. RAM is cheap now, so there's no sense, once again, trying to nickel and dime. I'm sure that the amount that he spent, the owner of this computer spent to ship this to me, is far more money than it would cost to replace the RAM. Now, the other thing I'm worried about are standoffs. I'm looking and I see different screws used on the motherboard. I see 2 hex head screws. I see a flush screw, which is the wrong type, another flush screw, which is the wrong type, and one is missing. So we have 2 different types of screws. There's supposed to be 5, and there are only 4. And if I turn the case around, I wonder how many standoffs I have. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, Oh, the standoff is missing. That's why there's no screw there. And then this would be 4 and 5. This one would be 6. So 2 in the middle, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. There are 2 on the top. There's 1 in the middle. How come I don't see 2 on the bottom? Where's the other bottom one? Ah, it's over here. Okay, so there are 2 on the bottom. So this bothers me to see the wrong type of screw used, but it's not necessarily going to impact the computer's ability to power on. I want to grab a standard power supply. Now, a standard power supply from EVGA, 400 to 500 watts, should cost you about $29, $30. And on this system, we don't need much. I've got one that's here in my back office just for this occasion. I don't generally keep a specific testing power supply. If the power supply powers the system and the customer wants to buy it, I sell it to them. And then I'll get another power supply that will replace and become my testing power supply. And if I test it in the customer system and it works and the customer wants to buy that one, around the wheel goes. I don't want to take a working power supply, swap it out with a brand new power supply out of the box, and then find out that one doesn't work. So that's the point. These power supplies are being tested and they're proven to work. So that's the logic in the diagnostic process. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 24-pin connector on. There we go. And then I need to put the 4-pin CPU power connector on, which is right here. This is a 600 watt power supply, which is way, way more than this guy needs. He's probably looking at maybe, you know, if I gave him a 400 watt power supply, 430 is probably twice what this thing's actually going to use, because there's no graphics card in here. He's running off of onboard video, off of an Intel chip. Now, I don't know anything about it. I don't know which chip this is. It says it's an MSI B150M Bazooka motherboard. That tells me nothing. I'm not familiar with gigabytes. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with MSI's line of boards. And I can't remember what the 150 chipset was for. It had to be 100 series, which would say, was that Haswell? It was a few generations back, right? I'm just guessing. And there's nothing at stake if I'm wrong, so I don't care if I'm way off base there. But I know it's a few years old. It's not ancient by any means. Now let's go ahead and give it some juice, and we'll plug in an HDMI cable so we can see what it will do. Yeah, it does have HDMI. I was worried it wasn't there. That's good. I've got this keyboard and mouse over here plugged in. Let me turn them on. Okay. And then we can hit the power and see what it does. You know, I think I want to take this optical drive out. It's in the way. And it's gonna come out later anyway, so let's just get it out of the way now, because it's blocking my view of what's going on inside. It's a distraction that I don't need right now. Once again, once everything is up and running, we can start to add things one at a time. And that's your basic diagnostic setup right there. You remove anything you don't have to make the system turn on, and just turn on. Remove anything USB that you don't need, flash drives, printers, Ethernet cable, whatever it is that we just want a basic power on self-test. I have people reach out to me all the time. I just built this new computer and nothing happens when I turn it on. Or the fans spin and then it goes right back off. Or the fans spin and they just stay spinning and nothing happens. That means you built too much. You should have tested it just like I demonstrate before you completed that build. Because now you don't know what the culprit is. You've thrown everything in the pot and you don't know where the bad flavor is coming from anymore. So we have to start over again. You have to say, okay, take everything out. Take it all out and just leave the board, the CPU, the RAM, and the power supply. Hook up a keyboard and mouse, hook up your monitor, and that's it, right? And now let's see what happens. We'll flip the switch to on, and we'll hit the power button here. And nothing's happening. Maybe that's not the power button. Don't you go nowhere. Oh, I see a cable that's not hooked up here. What does this go to? Isn't that interesting? So in a situation like this, there appears to be a cable that has come off. And so what I want to do is I want to completely remove the cable from the agenda, from the list of things that could be wrong. So all of those front port umbilicals are going to be disconnected because I can't figure out, first of all, it's a hard power switch to get to. And I can't figure out where that other end of that cable goes because it was disconnected. That's how it arrived. And since I don't want to use that case anyway, any time I spend trying to fix it is wasted time because I have no intent on using the case again. But before I move the parts out of the case entirely, I like to do the diagnostic in the case for the protection that it gives the motherboard and everything versus setting it on the counter or scratching up my Lazy Susan from the electronics underneath. So I'm going to just guess that that's going to go right there on these two sets of pins. I guess that's a wrong guess because it ain't working, Carey. How about these set of pins down here? No. How about this set of pins? No. Oh, got some lights. Oh, I see what's wrong. The CPU fan, when I unplugged it, I didn't plug it back in, so I'm waiting for the CPU fan to start as my indication. Now, let me flip the power supply back on. Let's fire that up. Now that's turning, and let's go back to the input for this computer and see if we get a signal out of it. So far, we got nothing. So I'm going to point out, again, that RAM may be causing this issue. So we'll hit the switch on the power supply. We don't want to work with any power on the board. Wait for that fan to stop. See, you saw it even, it started up there just for a second. We're going to take these two modules out, these two RAM modules. And we'll put these two back in. And I'll keep them in the white slots. So these were originally in the black slots. So just to mix it up a little bit, and we know what this, we know it's not working the other way, and we know it didn't work the way we just tested it. So this will be the first change, is to swap out the RAM and the RAM position, and we'll turn it back on again, and let's see if we get anywhere this time. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have made a difference either. Let me make sure I'm plugged into all the right inputs and all the cables are plugged in securely, because I was in a bit of a hurry when I started this. And if your cables, especially HDMI cables, if they're not seated all the way in, that can cause a bit of a problem. But we're not getting anything here. So what I'm going to do next, again, I'll shut it down, and I'm going to move these two. I'm going to take one of these RAM modules out as soon as this finishes what it's doing here. I'm going to take one RAM module out, and I'm going to just set it down, and we're going to try and fire it up with just one module. So I don't even know what CPU I'm working with. Oh, we got something here. That's a good sign. F1 to run setup. Why is F1 not working? There it goes. All right. So this is an interesting little tale here. So that RAM module works in slot 1. So I'm going to shut the machine back off, and I'm going to remove that RAM module, and I'm going to move it to the other white socket here as soon as this drains power. So all I'm going to do is move it to the other white socket because I'm trying to figure out if I got a bad socket or if I got a bad RAM module. Now, since I know that that RAM module just worked, if it doesn't work now, that suggests a bad socket. So we're about to find out. So we know we have a good socket, and we know that RAM module's good. Now we'll shut this off, and we're gonna pull this RAM module, and we're gonna set it up here. We know that one's good. We're gonna put this one back in, and I'll put it in the other socket where I just pulled that one. We'll flip the switch back on and turn the power on, and let's see if it'll post. It is posting, very good. Once again, we're gonna turn this off and we're gonna put this one right back just how it was when I started, with both of these modules in the white sockets. One there, switch back on. We know each module works independently and each module works in each socket. So will they work together? Yes, they worked together. Now let's leave it there for a moment. The next thing I want to do is run memtest86 on it to see that those modules are okay. I don't even want to think about the other two at this point. So I have my little flash drive and I have a quick tips video on how to make your own free memtest86 bootable flash drive. And so what we'll do is turn the machine off, find a USB port back here, and turn the machine back on. It has no drives in it, so it has no place to boot other than that USB flash drive, and therefore I should not, unless the BIOS has been changed, I should not have to tell it to boot to the flash drive. It should just realize it's the only thing it can boot to and boot to it, because it doesn't have a choice. Unless somebody in the, unless the owner went in there and turned off USB booting in the BIOS. But they didn't, because you can see it's booting to the USB right now. Now, I don't have to touch anything. memtest86 should just start on its own and should run its memtest program without me having to do a thing. And then we can get, memtest will tell us what the CPU is and everything here. It'll tell us all that information, which kind of kills two birds with one stone. I don't have to bring up CPU-Z or something like that. You'll see there's a countdown timer that says if you don't touch anything, it's going to run a default test. That's what we want it to do, so we're not going to touch anything. And this is a real live repair. This is how I do it. And we can take a look now at what the specifications of the hardware are on this machine, which states it is an Intel Pentium G4560 at 3.50 gigahertz. So this was very much a budget machine. It was built to a price point. And I will see more of these in for repair than I will ever see computers that are, $200 more than whatever this cost. Honestly, it's just a combination of inexpensive components that just don't have the quality control that their pricier competition has. But it's not that much more money. People find money to pay for RGB, which is completely unnecessary, and then not find the money for a good quality power supply or a good quality case or a good quality screen. It's interesting to me what people prioritize. But, I can only tell you that I charge the same amount of money to fix a $200 computer as I charge to fix a $2,000 computer. And the $2,000 computers don't require as much repair, generally speaking. They're easier to build, especially for a first-time builder. Not even a $2,000 computer. I would say I see more $300 computers for repair than $800 computers. And I realize that's a pretty big price gap. But if we're talking about a $300, brand name, factory built crap box, there's a lot of corners cut on that. And an $800 machine at 2.5 times the cost will last you 4 times longer without statistically any of the headaches like this, without cut hands because the case is sharp and all the little issues that come along with just the bottom, the race to the bottom. I'm not interested in a race to the bottom. What's your time worth? You probably spent as much to ship the computer as practically the computer is going to cost to replace when you factor in return shipping and insurance. And whether I'm shipping 40 pounds of crap or 40 pounds of gold, the price is based on 40 pounds. The shipping cost doesn't change about what's causing the 40 pounds. What represents the 40 pounds doesn't matter. So it's really about making an investment into your own time. And like I said, if I was a technician looking for a challenge, then I would buy the cheapest stuff I could find. And that would be a very good technical challenge. It's definitely not ideal for somebody building their own machine. And it's not something it's going to bring you a lot of joy. It's going to be headaches. It's probably going to be filled with regret. So welcome in, everybody. I got right to business today. Everything's been so serious today. I'm sorry. I've been just sort of pulled away into so many other people's issues today that sort of in that frame of mind. So let's give a shout out to everybody who's contributed. Winston Ang Lu has contributed 50 Canadian dollars. Thank you, Winston. Rick Hubbard contributed 10 pounds. He says, from this old man for Coke and pizza. Right on, Rick. Thank you. David Penny's contributed 10 Australian dollars, and he said, the contribution and belated greeting from Perth. Cheers. Right on. Thank you, David. Ben has contributed 5 pounds. He says, great videos, mate. Helped me out a lot with Malware Bytes. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you. Bill Ottinger's contributed $1. Stephen Sheik, $2. And Tony Wallow, $1.99. Thanks. You guys rock. I apologize once again for all of the late start to today's show. But we got there. We got there. So right now we're running memtest, and you'll see very carefully if you look at the screen what's happening. It tells us that we are, let's see if I can, is my mouse going to work in memtest? I don't know. No. If we look at the top of the screen, it says Intel Pentium. And then just below that, it says pass 58%. And then it says test 22%, is it? And then it says test 7. Now it's going to do a total of 13 different types of tests for the process to be complete. So if we keep looking down towards the middle, it'll say pass 1/4. And then at the bottom right, or the middle right, it says errors 0. We want to let this test run at least one full pass, which is 13 tests, of which it's on test 8 right now. See where it says test 8? Right below where it says pass in green. Then it says test in like a brown, and then it's highlighted. Test 0 is what's highlighted. I'm seeing test 8 is what's highlighted, not test 0. It's 8. My screen is like this big, so bear with me and my bad eyes. That doesn't help. But anyway, we're going to go through 13 different iterations of tests to create one pass. You don't have to do pass 2, 3, or 4. So the reason that's there is some really obscure memory issues won't occur until the memory gets to a certain temperature. It heats up. But in most cases, because that's pretty unusual, in most cases, if you can get through one full pass with the error count remaining at 0, your RAM is probably just fine. You'd be really unlucky to have some RAM that passes one pass or 3 passes, but doesn't pass 1 out of 4. That's really, really unusual. But if you want to let it run overnight, it will take a while. How long it takes depends on how fast your computer is and how much memory you've got. There are a number of variables there. So I can't tell you how long it'll take. It'll take whatever it takes based on what you have and how much of it. So that's how that works. And me telling you how long it's going to take won't make that any different, won't change it. So asking that question is irrelevant to reality. It will take what it takes, and I don't know what it's going to take because I don't know what the specifications of your computer are. So set your expectations accordingly. Expect it to take anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half to complete one pass of 13 tests. There's a lot of variables. Okay? Okay. Is that right? Is that right? Joseph Panariello's contributed $2. Thank you, Joseph. And Sean Jimenez has contributed $2 and says, thanks for all you do. Thank you. Franklin says his computer arrived today. Did you get it hooked up? Are you using it now, Franklin? John in Los Angeles said his computer arrived yesterday, and he's sending me his old X299. What a surprise. Everybody who has a computer problem, it seems like they're X299, X99, or Threadripper. Those are the systems I get most often. X299, X99, and Threadripper systems are the ones that people call me for support with the most. And in every single case but one, the people that own these computers didn't need them. They didn't need, like if they would have just gone with an i7 8700K or 8086K or 9700K, if they stuck with a 370 chipset, or if they even went to, AMD on the lower rung, they wouldn't have had these problems. But no, they wanted to have all that power, and they don't have any software, save for one of those people, didn't have any software that benefited them in any way, shape, or form to have all that power. So there's this like weird trying to think how to phrase it. It's almost like they're getting your minds poisoned from bad information on the internet, that getting the fastest, most expensive thing is the best thing you can buy. Ferraris are not known for their reliability. They're known for going fast and requiring a lot of maintenance. Those Threadrippers, those X299s and X99s, those are Ferraris. And if you don't have a need for one, even if you've got the money, it's not worth it for the time you have to invest in the constant maintenance. That's not to say every one of them is like that. Of course, there are people who build them and don't have any problems. They know what they're doing. They picked all good parts. They did their research and everything works. That X99 system that I was working on that came back from Ramon, we found bad capacitors across the VRMs, just so burned we couldn't even read them to figure out what they are so we can replace them. How do you explain it? It's just a very demanding system, and it's very finicky, and we don't know what the tolerances are, but clearly those tolerances were not enough. And it's just something that doesn't occur, or it rarely occurs, on the more consumer-based chipsets. And the difference in performance is mostly unnoticeable by 999 people out of 1,000. If you sit them in front of it and don't let them look at the specs, but just have them run their software, they would be hard-pressed to tell you which. I would be hard-pressed. It would be a guess. There would be nothing I could do. There's no software I could run, with the exception of something like Adobe Premiere that would really extrude or take advantage of all those cores that would make a difference in my rendering times. And that's one of maybe half a dozen programs in the world that you can buy that aren't custom written that would take advantage of a system of that level of power. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. You are basically buying a Ferrari to go to the grocery store every day, and you're wondering why it just won't start all the time. Because it's a Ferrari. But you mean to tell me I could have bought a Toyota for a tenth of the price and not had any of these issues for years? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Yep. Is it time for a Coke? I think it's time for a Coke. This really upset me. I'm gonna flip over to. I got to talk about something that really upset me the other day. I'm still upset by it. This is the drip tray of my refrigerator. It's disgusting. It's actually peeling apart. I don't know if you can see the plastic up here is peeling. This is a piece of plastic painted chrome. This is a GE refrigerator. It's the most expensive refrigerator I've ever purchased because I've always had good luck with GE refrigerators. They've always been reliable and well priced. So the first one I bought, I was so impressed with it, I bought a second one to replace it with that was larger and had more features. And then when we bought this house, I wanted a really nice refrigerator that, it was big. It's 70 inches tall. It's like 24 cubic feet. It's a big fridge. And it's been nothing but problems. Nothing but problems. The little drawers, the plastic drawers, they've cracked. They want $250 for each drawer for a piece of plastic. This is listed on Amazon, this part. It is listed as being stainless steel. It's plastic painted to look like metal. How much do you think this part sells for? Plastic part that deteriorates in time, that you could probably make on a 3D printer for around $6. How much money do you think GE wants for this plastic drip tray? This is what I want to know. Because when I tell you, you're going to understand why I'm so offended at GE and why I'll never buy another GE appliance for the rest of my life. Come on, how much is this piece, this plastic piece that just sits right down here in my refrigerator? I'm going to show you exactly where it goes. It just goes right here, just to keep the drips out of the ice maker. How much do you think that piece costs? Let me rephrase. I think you guys are all over the map. How much would you pay? How much would you expect to pay for that piece? If it was your refrigerator, right? And the refrigerator's nice, but that drip tray makes it look like it's not nice. What would you reasonably expect to pay for that? I expected to pay about $6 to $12, maybe 15 tops. The cheapest I could find it was on Amazon for $55 plus sales tax for a piece of plastic that will just deteriorate again. It's not better than this one. It's the exact same thing. And I thought maybe I could find it from an appliance shop, you know, somebody that buys old refrigerators. Because there are people that do that. They'll sell the shelves, they'll sell the drawers, they'll piece it out and make a lot of money. Not around. And you should see the reviews on Amazon for that little drip tray. Now, never mind my ice maker auger keeps breaking every 18 months. Never mind the plastic drawers just dried and cracked and broke. There's no kids running around here. These are just adults. The refrigerator isn't constantly opened and closed. The ice maker is not constantly being used. And it's like built like a car. It's built like it's designed to deteriorate over time. So I went looking around and I found this really nice Samsung refrigerator that looks kind of like this, but it's a little bigger. And what they did is pretty unique. It's got French doors. So the doors come down, it's got the ice maker and everything here. And then right about here, there are two more doors down here. So you see, I can't get a drawer. If I open the drawer, I back into this counter. So I can't get one of those bottom drawer freezers. That's not going to work. And I don't want a top freezer because they don't hold enough. They're too small. So this was the perfect solution. So it's got 4 doors. When you open the 2 doors, you have one big refrigerated area with your drawers and shelving. And then down here, you have a left freezer and a right freezer. And it's expensive, but I'm about ready to get rid of that over that ice, like that little drip tray. There's nothing wrong with the refrigerator. It works fine. But I'm so sick of all of the repairs I've had to do on it. It's never had a compressor issue. It's never faltered as far as, you know, food going bad or not being cold. That function has always worked. But between the ice maker breaking every 18 months since I bought it, the drawers cracking even though they're under very little use, and now this drip tray, and the price for everything is ridiculous. I ended up, again, I bought the drawers off of eBay from an appliance seller, and they were still too expensive, but they were still half of what it would cost me to buy them new. And they look exactly the same, they work the same, and I feel like I'm being taken advantage of or being played a fool, and it offends me. So for that reason, I want that refrigerator out of here as soon as I can afford it. I'm willing to go put it on credit just to get it out before the next stupid thing on it breaks. That's how I feel. That's the kind of person I am. So when I tell you about these little cheap computers like this, there gets to be a certain point, and most of us hit it, where you're like, I have put more money into this than I spent to buy it, or I'm reaching that point, or I'm dealing with problems nobody else deals with because I went so cheap on my parts. And it's insulting when you spend extra money, like I did, under the false assumption that that company maintained the same leadership and quality control that they had from the models I bought previously. But clearly that has changed. Clearly the leadership at GE has decided that we can work the consumer sideways and exploit as much profit as possible. There's no other way you can explain that that drip tray is $56 with no improvement that won't prevent that from happening again on the new one I buy. It's just a matter of time. So do I want to put $56 into it and be happy? Or do I want to spend $2,600 on a new refrigerator because of a $56 part? The problem is, this isn't the first $56 part. Every time the ice maker breaks, that's $250. It's happened every 18 months over the course of almost 10 years. Those drawers that cracked, all three drawers cracked, all three drawers had to be replaced at an average cost of $80 a piece. One of the drawers I ordered was the wrong drawer and I had to send it back. It's a hassle. It's just I just wheel this thing out, wheel the new one in, plug it in, new warranty, more power efficient, everybody's happy. It's gonna hit me in the pocketbook, but I should be good for another 10 years, in theory. And it should cost less money to run on electricity. It should be more efficient than this. This is the kind of thinking I'm trying to convey to you. It's not just about what I need today, it's about the benefits of making a sacrifice today so I don't have to sacrifice tomorrow, next week, next month, and I can rely on it and just not even think about it. It just works until it no longer meets my needs. That's when I should be replacing it. At this point, that refrigerator meets all my needs, but I am just fed up with all the repairs. Same thing happened with my Chevy Blazer and my Hyundai Veloster. More repairs were necessary than should have been based on how the cars were being used. The Mustang has required 0 repairs in 6 years, never needed a repair. And the Subaru we got from Subaru Mike has needed 0 repairs, 0 repairs. So when you find a good quality manufacturer, it's worth spending a couple extra dollars so that you don't have to spend a lot more dollars and time and frustration and inconvenience keeping it running. That's what you have here. Now, when the owner of the computer sent it to me, he says, look, I know it's not good. Please go easy on me. Like, this isn't an insult. I'm not insulting. That's not my intent. My intent is to go, okay, class, let's look at what should have been done differently. I personally wouldn't have spent the money to ship this to me. I don't think the value of what's in here is worth the cost of shipping it back and forth. But if that's what the customer wants to do, I'm happy to do it. And I'm happy, of course, to always make a video and teach about it. But if that was an i7 in there, this would be worth doing. If there was a big graphics card in there, this would be worth doing. But you're basically paying a heart surgeon to put a Band-Aid on your arm. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you can certainly do it, but it just seems like a waste of everybody's time and money. But if that's what the customer wants, I'm happy to oblige. And that's why I'm such a terrible businessman, because a good businessman will say, yeah, I'll fix it, bring it in. I don't care what it is. I get paid the same. And I'm not like that. I'm thinking of the customer. I'm thinking, instead of paying that money for shipping, you could put that money you're paying on shipping towards some better components. And I'd rather see you spend your money on better components rather than try and make these components work. But that's not my decision to make. I just offer that. Like, I just tell my customers, I don't think it's worth doing. I think if you took the money you were going to pay me and you put it towards a new machine, that new machine won't seem so expensive anymore. You'll have instant gratification because you get the new machine right away. There's no delay waiting for me to fix it. Though I suspect in this particular case, this person wanted to see a video made. I've got something around here I can send to Carey. I want to send Carey something so I can watch him work on it. I think there was a little bit of that in there, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it. What would the price of a repair be on this PC? It'll vary depending on where you live in the world. And since we don't know what the repair is yet, if you live in New York City, your rent and cost of living is a lot higher than if you live in Podunk, Iowa. That's just the reality. And prices will be based on a lot of factors involving competition, how busy you are, how experienced are you. Should a guy who just opened his business and has 6 months of experience be charging the same prices as somebody who's been in the business for nearly 30 years? I've seen more, I've done more, I've got more experience. Is that better? Well, I think it is. I was at a pizza shop, and these guys running the pizza shop have gray hair. And I said, "How long you guys been making pizzas?" He says, 30 years. I said, "Isn't it interesting that when I pay you $12 or $15 for a pizza, I'm getting a guy who's been making pizza for 30 years. I get a guy making a pizza for 30 years of experience for the exact same price as the 16-year-old kid who has no passion for what he does, working at some fast food pizza joint, running it through the assembly line. Which pizza do you think is more than likely going to taste better? The guy who's been doing it for 30 years because he's passionate about it? Or the kid who's just working a job to get by because it's the only thing he can get paid to do, working in a corporation that has policies and procedures regarding that every pizza comes out the same? And the price is identical. Well, you know what? I'm going to take the guy who's got 30 years of experience. I'm going to let him make my pizza. It's kind of a no-brainer to me. Now, how much did that pizza cost? Well, it depends where that guy's located. If that guy is located in a small town and there's not a big population, prices are going to be less. If the guy's in a big town and there's a lot of competition, his prices will be equivalent to his area. If people are lining up out the door to eat his pizza, his prices are going up. So there's really no answer to what is this repair going to cost, or what would it cost. There's no answer to that, because what I do is I invite my viewers to send me a computer for repair, and I'll do the labor for free. But you're going to have to pay for the shipping to get it to me, and you're going to have to pay for the shipping for me to get it back to you. And if there are any parts that you need, if I've got spare parts laying around, I'll sell them to you cheap. I might just give them to you. But in most cases, you're going to have to provide me with the parts because I don't sell parts. So if this needs a part and I don't know what that part is yet, the customer will have to provide that to me. That will add to the cost of the repair. But if you have a desktop computer running Windows 7 or later that you're having problems with, and you're in the United States and you'd like me to make a video out of it and show you the repair process, I'd love to do it. I absolutely love to do it. And I charge you $0 for that. You just got to pay for the shipping and any parts. That's it. But you'd be surprised how much that adds up to. We can easily hit $200 just on shipping, depending on the weight of the computer and how far it's going to go. You have to understand that if you're a specialist and you're working in specialist equipment, so let's say you know how to fix the heart machines at the hospital, the medical equipment, you can make big money. But you're not going to be working on mom and pop's computers because they don't work anything the same. If you're a copy machine repairman, that's a computer in there. But if you're a specialist in that niche, you will make far more money. It'll be harder to find the work. But on the other hand, there's probably not a lot of competition of people doing it. If you become an expert on how to operate QuickBooks or software for dentists, you can be the guy in your county or even in neighboring counties. If you're the closest guy, and you could pretty much name your own price. But if you just want to do generic repairs from residential clients, like what you see me doing right now, don't expect to make much. People don't have a lot of money to give you. If they did, they would have just replaced that. They wouldn't have called you. Like I said, replacing it's faster. Just go to the store, buy a new one, your problem's done, and you get a new warranty. Jason is in the chat room, and I have not been naming him. But he says, you can name me. All right, Jason. So Jason, who's joining us in the chat, this is Jason's computer right here. But he didn't have a very good case to work in, first and foremost. And I don't know why he selected this case, but for a few dollars more, he could have got a much nicer case. And by the way, he did. He sent me a Corsair case to move everything into. So he did right that wrong. But it's just too bad he didn't do it right the first time. He would have saved money. Because buying 2 cases costs more than buying 1, last I checked. Carey, when did the M2 drives come out for motherboards? Right around the this chipset, the 100 series chipset. Maybe even X97, Z97. X97, what's that? Z97 chipset, I think, is when the first M2 drives showed up, if I'm not mistaken. Anything before that won't have it. And then, of course, you want a UEFI-based motherboard. So just because you have a Z97 won't necessarily mean that you'll have a compatible BIOS for it. Not all Z97s had it. It was sort of a brand new feature at that time. Became more commonplace in 100 series chipsets from Intel. I couldn't tell you on the AMD side because I didn't really care until Ryzen came out. And by the time Ryzen came out, M2s were already fully saturated into the marketplace. I'm pretty sure you could Wikipedia that, though. You probably wiki M2 and read all about it. Jason will live and learn. Yeah, absolutely. But the idea is that by sharing it with you, you can learn along with Jason, right? So that you all don't have to repeat what Jason did. You can say, oh, I understand this now. I get it. There's a reason why I don't want to buy that case. There's a reason why I don't want to spend that little on a power supply. I'll go with a name brand, a Corsair, EVGA, Seasonic, Antec, Thermaltake. Buy a name brand power supply. They're not expensive. They really are not expensive anymore. Not only that, they're going to be power efficient. Even the cheap EVGAs are 80 plus rated. There's no 80 plus rating on that power supply back there. That costs you more money to run that. So whatever you thought you saved in buying that power supply, you're paying back tenfold in the power usage over the years. If it works, for years, you'll be paying more to the power company. Depending on, if you leave the system on 24/7 or if you use it 8 hours a day. So again, we're not here to insult anybody. But we are going to point out some better decision making, and so that you'll be happier with the purchasing choices you make and be less likely to be caught in this situation that Jason found himself in because of that logic that he used at the time. So all I'm trying to say is let's not use that logic anymore. Let's not use the logic of what's the cheapest thing I can get away with. That is going to get you in trouble every time. I think it's a more interesting challenge as to somebody's technical ability rather than like these junkyard wars where people go and get old computers and try and piece something together. That's no technical skill. Really, it's not. The real technical skill is in racing to the bottom of buying brand new components and trying to build a working computer that can maintain a certain level of performance for under $300 or whatever the price point is, because those are the components you're going to have trouble configuring. Those are the components you're going to have trouble with reliability, and that is going to test the mettle of the tech. That's my opinion. So if anybody has any questions for me, I think we still have a little ways to go on this test. Let me see. Oh, are we on pass 2 already? Oh, yeah, we finished pass 1, so we're good here. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut this back off. And I'm going to pull my memtest USB drive out of here, and I'm going to find the cap and put it where it goes. And now we can throw an operating system on it. Let's see if an operating system will even be accepted. So I'll grab one of these spare I'll grab one of these spare SSDs I've got. Yeah, here's a 120 gig drive that Steve sent to me for the giveaways, but the 120 is too small, but it'll be perfect for testing. I don't want to change anything on the customer's hard drive. I don't know what's on there. I don't know if he needs anything, and I don't know that, I don't know what's on it. So we're going to grab a hard drive that already has a clone of Windows 10 off of one of those Dells. Remember the Dells we're giving away? This may just boot up without any issues at all. It's just a clone of a Dell. I don't know which one of these controllers is the Intel controller, but we'll just guess. So we'll put the SATA cable on, and we'll put the power cable on, and we'll just see if Windows 10 loads. It's going from Intel to Intel, so I think it'll just be fine. Let's find out. I have a lot of people ask me questions. They go, Carey, what would happen if I did this? I go, I don't know. Why don't you try it and you tell me what happens? Like, people think I have a crystal ball, or people are looking for guarantees. How do I do this without failing? Well, do it, and then let me know how that works out. And then we'll go back and look at it if it didn't work out right to figure out where you failed and how you can do better next time. It's really not a big deal. All right, so here we go. Now let's try and see if this will boot from this little SSD I've got here. So right now it's not apparently seeing the SSD, which is interesting. So let me move the SATA connector to a different port. Let's move it down here. Let's see if that works any better for me. Back on, back to the power switch. So what I'll do is, let's go into the BIOS and see if it detects that SSD. First thing I want to do, since I don't know what's going on in this BIOS, is I just want to restore the default settings. And then we're going to go back to the peripherals here. SATA mode is AHCI. We don't need hot plugging turned on. The high performance event timer, you definitely want that turned on for Windows 8 and above. So if you have an old system, that's usually an option. New computers shouldn't even offer that anymore. I think everything else is okay. There, it does see the hard drive right there. Boot option 1 is there. And let's turn off all the other boot options. We can go into the boot order. Where's our boot order? It did show it there. How do I change it? Hard disk drive priorities. Yeah, that's it. I just don't need to boot from the network. Let's disable that. I don't need to boot from a USB floppy, so let's disable that. I don't need to boot from, yeah, I'm gonna say US. I'm gonna turn all these to disabled. It just slows your boot down. If the first thing doesn't boot, then it tries the second, third, all the way down the line. And you can always override this with an F12 or F10 key at startup. Or you can just come back in here and turn, like if you want to boot off USB, you can turn that back on. So this one here, I want to move it up. So we'll put that right there. And yeah, we'll just do disabled on everything else. This one has a lot to disable. Your system's going to work even if you leave this enabled. But it's just like I say, if it has any trouble booting, it's going to try to boot from every one of those options one by one by one by one by one until it finally says, I give up. I want it to give up much sooner than that. If it doesn't boot from the hard drive, I need to know right away, because I don't have the patience to sit and wait for it to try boot off a network. It's ridiculous. That's something they do in a corporate environment, not in a house. Let's see if it boots this time. Remember, this is just a clone of the Dell with basic Windows 10 Pro on it. I've not done anything to it. Just take it out of one computer, put it in another computer. So that way I don't have to reinstall Windows 10. It's a clean install of Windows 10 off of a other Intel-based machine. And that's why I'm so positive or confident that it's going to boot right to the desktop, even though it's a completely different machine. Now, that won't maintain activation that way, but I never activated it to begin with. Because it's a clone, I don't activate them until I'm ready to send them to the customer for just this very reason. I can play with them, and I can make changes and then just reclone over it when I'm done. I'm free to do any experimentation without any concern of losing data or without any concern of messing up my configuration by putting it back in the computer it's going to go in. I just restore the clone right back to it, puts it right back to the way it is right now. So now if we look at what this machine has in here, I can right click here, go to properties, and that's 8 gigs of RAM. You know, 8 gigs of RAM is plenty in this. You don't need 16. I wouldn't put the other 2 sticks back in it because there's clearly a problem there. If you do want to put 16 gigs of RAM in it, I would suggest getting 4 matching sticks of memory, all from the same manufacturer. Well, technically, you can get away with any memory of any size as long as the CAS latency is the same. That works well in theory, but not necessarily in reality. For the best reliability, just get, you know, if you want 32, if you want 16, put 4. These are 2 sticks of 4. Find another 2 sticks of 4 that match those, or just buy a whole new kit. Maybe you could get away with 2 8s. I don't know. I'm not sure what this board will take, but I imagine it'll see 2 8s without any problem to get you to 16. I think it's great with 8. Trying to force the other 2 modules to work is going to be an exercise in futility, all to save whatever 2 4 sticks of, what is this, DDR3 or DDR4? It's going to be DDR4. It's cheap. This is cheap. You get 2 sticks of 8 for $70. That'll give you 16 gigs for $70 and have no compatibility problems. Or just leave it at 8. 8's fine. I mean, unless you're doing something extreme, but you can't be doing anything extreme on a Pentium D or a Pentium G 4560. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let me switch back over here because I did invite you guys if you had any questions to ask me before I got a little carried away there. Jason says it's a 64 gig max. So that means it'll take each individual stick can be 16. So 16 times 4 would get you to 64. But like I said, this stuff's cheap. And it doesn't make sense to put 64 gigs of RAM on the lowest end Pentium processor you can buy. That's complete extreme opposites. STS Tech contributed $2.45. He says, much love and appreciation with Coke good vibes. Hey, thank you for that. I appreciate it. David Pounds has contributed $10. He says, I built my own PC using your videos as reference material. I'd much rather spend $10 watching your videos learning something useful than paying for HBO or Showtime and learning nothing. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. I think I have more new content than HBO or Showtime. And you see just about as many dragons. John Stellick has contributed $2. He says, I love the Hancho and Mexico Coke. Yes, the made in Mexico Coke uses real cane sugar, whereas here in the United States, we've replaced that with high fructose corn syrup. John Pamias has contributed $5 and says, have a Coke and a smile. Well, thank you. I think I will. Get a Trollson brand fridge. I've never even heard of Trollson. I knew somebody that had a Sub-Zero refrigerator. They're very expensive and very expensive to fix. I was not impressed. I think Samsung or LG is where I'll be looking when it comes to a refrigerator. And that 4-door, that French door Samsung is just gorgeous. Carey, what state are you in? Arizona. Music Perich says, hello from Switzerland. Hello. Jason says, I might have gotten that case for free. Jason, you still paid too much. I think I got the measles for free once. It wasn't a deal. Can you use an M2 and SSD without any issues? Well, an M2 is an SSD, so of course you can use them without issues. It is a very quiet system. You know, now that we've taken the fans out and replaced the power supply, this thing is pretty well dead silent. The Intel stock cooling fan does a bang-up job on the Pentium G series chips. In fact, I'd say it does a really good job all the way up to an i5. It's when you get into the i7s that things start to get a little underpowered for the heat that comes off for the power. Tony Wallows contributed $1.99. He says, thank you for all you do. Well, thanks for all you do. Tony supports the channel with frequent contributions, and I do appreciate that very much. I don't think this drive has an M2 slot in it, does it? I mean, this motherboard, it doesn't support M2. No, I don't see an M2 socket on it, so that ain't happening. But he wouldn't see much difference anyway, just bumping it up to an SSD, a regular 2.5-inch SSD like what I have here. That's going to make a huge difference in performance. If you don't already have one of these on a desktop or laptop that you're using now, just buy one of these and use a Cronus or just whatever to clone your mechanical drive to your solid state and pull that mechanical drive. It is causing all of the slowness that you experience. And make sure you have at least 8 gigs of RAM. You should be golden for another 3 to 5 years. Just that easily. It'll be the single best upgrade you can do to your computer. And I have lots and lots of videos demonstrating how to do that upgrade on laptops and desktops. Several demonstrations. Watch Carey fail and then avoid that. Yeah, I don't want to see you fail. I'm like, if I fail, then learn from it. If I make a mistake, ideally, we all learn from that mistake. Otherwise, what's the point? It's like, all right, well, I learned it, but wouldn't it be great if other people could benefit too? Then that makes that mistake more worthwhile. Mistakes aren't necessarily a bad thing. Mistakes are how we learn. When you know how not to do it, it leads you to how to do it. And if you did it right the first time every time, life would be boring. If you played a game that you could just instantly win and get right to the end without any challenge, you'd say that game sucked. Well, for people that live life afraid of failure, it sounds to me like your life sucks pretty bad. Yes, everybody makes mistakes, but not everybody admits it. A lot of people have a lot of pride and ego that get in the way of them admitting they're human. Like people just don't want to admit they're human. And I have those days when I see what other people in the human race do, and I'm ashamed to be in that race. I'm ashamed to be a human when I see humans killing each other. It makes me feel like I don't even know the words for it. Shame. Carey, have you ever worked on a computer board that the heatsink bent the board when it was attached? No, I've seen the heatsinks arrive bent, but never the boards. But boards are cheap and they're pretty easy to replace. So, you spend $100, throw the old one out, put the new one in and be done with it. Especially if you're doing it yourself, the cost of labor alone will cost you more than the part. So if you're doing it yourself, it's very easy to justify the $100. Do it right and be done with it. It'll be working for years and years and years rather than trying to eke by with Band-Aids and duct tape. That's what I do. Get it done right. Be proud of it. Don't just get by. Don't cut any corners. It's not doing it the right way. There's certainly a lot of YouTube channels that'll show you how to cut corners. There's no pride in that for me. Again, if you have any questions for me right now, this will be the time to ask. Jason, is there anything else you want me to look at here on the computer while I've got it on the bench? Are you okay with me just leaving those two RAM modules in since I know they work? Let's take the other RAM modules out of the equation. There's no sense wasting any time with them. Thomas M. has contributed $5. He says, love you and the community being here and sharing the information. Honestly, that's the best part of this YouTube channel is this community. I love this community. Love this community. And I don't know of any other community like it in existence in the entire World Wide Web. And I'm very proud of that, and I'm happy that you guys are a part of it. And I hope to see it grow. Jason says, if you cut corners, you end up with what Carey is working on right now. Yeah. I don't think so. Well, I mean, most people wouldn't send it to me to work on it. They wouldn't spend the money. I mean, do you remember what you spent on this, Jason? What you have invested in this whole thing? And what did you pay to ship it? I think that's what everybody should need to learn from this. And by the way, I don't know the answers to those questions. I genuinely don't know. But I know what it costs to ship a computer, and I know what it costs to buy those components. I have a general idea. That's why I'm asking. Oh, where am I? I'm over here. Still the wrong one. Hold on, let's switch back. There we are. Let's turn this off. Okay, so we're off there. So here's what I'm recommending for Jason. New case, a better power supply. Throw that old power supply. I wouldn't even keep that old power supply as a testing unit. That's how bad it is. That is a danger. You could fry perfectly good equipment worth 10 times more money than that power supply by being too cheap to buy a replacement and wanting to keep using that as a spare and have that spare fry perfectly good equipment, all because you wanted to save money. It doesn't save money. It costs you tons and tons more. Not to mention, it could give you false results where the power supply just kind of burns out and you think it was a good power supply. And now you're replacing parts that you don't have to replace based on false information from an unreliable piece of hardware. So I'm going to put this power supply back because 600 watts is more than Jason needs. I think I got a 430 in here that'll work for Jason. No, there's a 400, even better. All right, Jason. I got you back, Jason. Here's an EVGA 400 watt power supply. These sold for, I think these were $19.99 or $24.99. They were so cheap, I didn't need it. I said, you know, for $19.99, I'll buy 3 of them. And I've already used 2 of them. This is my last one. And that's all you're gonna, that's more, that's twice what you need on this configuration. I'm going to move the SSD back here. This is that power switch that I took out. I'm going to put it back. I always have a spare power switch for these occasions. Put that back in its drawer. There we go. And let's get the motherboard pulled out. So I got my good old Milwaukee M4 driver, my new favorite. It's my new favorite. Yeah. I know. Listen how fast that thing is. It doesn't screw around. These screws are way too long to be used to mounting motherboards. This is another way to screw your system up. Literally, screw the system up by using the wrong screws. This can cause all kinds of problems. The screws are way too long. Way too long. You got lucky. Now these short metal screws on these older cases, they're typically what is used, and they're okay. They're not as long. The depth of the screw. Oh, it's getting away. The depth of the screw can drive too far into the standoff and not seat completely, but it is basically quite a bit larger. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, but it's quite a bit larger, and that can create a problem. And they're apparently made of butter because they're slipping and sliding. We're not going to reuse those screws at all because the Corsair case that Jason provided me will come with all the screws that we need, and they'll be the right screws, not what we have laying around. Looks like we just have one more left right here. And this whole thing should come out. Oh, I missed one. And that's what happens if you don't. That's why you always want to leave a top screw, right? So you don't have that fall out. I'm not dealing with anything worth much, so I don't. If I break it, I'll pay Jason a new one. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't going to break my bank to replace it. These also are not made of glass, so you don't have to worry about. I see people handle parts like they're made of glass. You can. This isn't going to hurt it. You'll see. I mean, don't beat it around intentionally. I did not do that on purpose. But at the same time, I'm not freaked out that I might have broken it because 1, I probably didn't, and 2, if I did, so what? It's not worth much. I will take accountability and replace it at my cost if I broke it, but I didn't break it. You'll see. I'll show you. Let's see. I want to take these standoffs out of here. Standoffs are a 5mm, so I have a socket wrench or a ratcheting screwdriver with a 5mm socket on it just for the standoffs. And I just break these cases down. I try to discourage anybody from taking them out of the trash and reusing them because I don't want to see it back in my office or my kitchen, as the case may be. But Jason, I want to know why this screw was in there. What was that all about, my friend? There's no computer screw that's that long. What was that doing in there? And you have these screws floating around in shipping and they're banging around the inside. They can cause a ton more damage than you can possibly imagine. Then finally, we got to get that I/O shield out of here. You know this I/O shield back here? One of the best ways to get that out, just knock it out. This stuff is not made of glass. You don't have to treat it so gingerly. That's something nerds do. Don't be like that. It's cool to be a nerd, but don't be like that nerd. That's all I'm saying. It looks like they soldered this. It's not even screwed on. Oh, yeah, there's a screw. It's right here. I want to discourage anybody from pulling this out of the trash and using it, so I take everything apart. If it's got a screw, it's coming out. These I'll save. These are just PCI slot covers, and when people bring computers in where they're missing, I could say, hey, I'll throw one in, no charge. They say, what a nice guy. Did I get them all? I bet you there's screws underneath there. I'm on a mission. What's up, Jimmy? Is it time for your dinner? Are you hungry? You want your food? All right. And you can see the damage on the case down here because it's made of a thin metal. It's a very thin gauge metal. Oh, there's another screw rolling around in there. Let's get that out of there. I'll save the computer screws. I'll use them. But you can grab this and you can just be the Hulk and you can... Here, hold on. That's a cheap case. That's all I'm saying. It's just cheap. That's what cheap means. It's thin, easily bendable sheet metal. You won't be able to do that to a Corsair 200R. That's all I'm saying. All right, Jimmy, let's get you some food, boy. You hungry? You ready for some dinner? There you go. There you go. All right, this is gonna go, I don't know if this can be recycled or not, but I'll put it out here in the pile. Now, the good news is Jason sent me a much better case to put everything back in. So I'm gonna take that out of the box right now. I don't think you guys have ever seen this case on my channel before. Here we go. This is a Corsair Spec 04. It's the Carbide Spec 04 computer case. This fan is never going to get used again. So I'm going to grab my wire cutters just to make sure no one pulls it out of the trash to use it. And I'm going to cut the wires on it. I don't want to see it end up in a swap meet somewhere and see somebody get ripped off. So I will do what I can to destroy the parts before I throw them away. A lot of corporations, U.S. law requires them to destroy any parts to avoid somebody going out to the dumpster, having a little system where the company writes it off their taxes as a loss and then someone takes it home and uses it. So the government requires some of these companies to have a compactor, and all equipment must go into the compactor to be destroyed in order for it to be legally written off. And that's why. Because people like to game the system and manipulate it. And so rules go into effect because of people like that. And there are a lot of opportunists out there that'll go, oh, there's a perfectly good computer case in the trash. I'm gonna take that out, take it to the swap meet, and I'm gonna sell it. And in a way, it's just, the people who buy it get what they deserve. But I don't want to be a part of that if I can. I've seen too much of it in my life, and it makes me nauseous, the way people take advantage of each other. People should be looking out for each other, not taking advantage of each other. Hey, complete stranger, I want to take advantage of you as if you were a faceless corporation. I want to, it's not right. What did that person ever do to you? Okay, so I don't want to mix up any parts here. So these are going to be our new screws. And I'll keep all the old screws together because I'll decide which of those I want to keep and which ones will go in the trash. And let's get these side panels off. Oh, and these side panels, they can go with the case. In the trash or the recycle bin, whichever one they're going to go to, I'll just set those here like that. And what time is it? Oh, we're already at 6 o'clock. I am running out of time. So let's just do the basics. Let's just get the power supply motherboard in, and I'll just hook the SSD up and make sure it turns on, and I'll continue this, I think, tomorrow. Though there won't be much to continue. And then I'll have to talk to Jason to find out if there's anything else he wants me to do, like change that hard drive for an SSD. That's what I would recommend. Here's our box of screws for mounting the hardware in this case. I've never worked on this case before. Just to keep everything together, I'll throw his hard drive in there. What do I do with it? Put it over here somewhere. Here it is. What is this? It's a 1 terabyte Western Digital green. These are cheap. The least you could have done, Jason, is get a Western Digital black. If it's going to be your main drive, don't make it an eco drive. They're slow. Yeah, they drain less power because they're slow. That also means the data transfer rates are slow. So I would go with a Western Digital black if you've got to go mechanical. And another viewer sent me a few of these Western Digital blacks. I'll even give it to you just to get it out of my house if you want it. But I think you're going to be much, much happier with a solid state drive. So here's all the screws and everything for what we need. We can put the I/O shield in here. Just like that. Oh, there's no place for an optical drive to go on this, Jason. You cannot have an external optical drive. There's no optical drive. So if you want an optical drive, you'll have to get a USB-based one and just use your USB ports. This is something I don't like when this case manufacturer, Corsair, on this model, does two things I do not approve of. Right here, There's a power switch, a USB 3, and a USB 2. Well, in order to plug this USB 3 in, it's got to plug into a header that powers 2 of them. So where's the second one go? You can't plug 2 plugs into one header. That one plug powers 2 USB ports. So Coursera said, in order for us to save you money, we're going to cut in half your USB 3 and your USB 2. So instead of getting 4, 2 from one and 2 from the other, you'll only get 1 from one and 1 from the other, but they're going to consume 2 each. To save you money, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. If you see a case with 1 blue and 1 black, you're getting screwed. You are literally getting screwed. Case manufacturers who do this should be publicly shamed for placing their customers in a wasted resources situation. Most people need more USB ports, not less. I would rather see 2 USB 2s or 2 USB 3s. Instead, you've got 2, but you're consuming, the plugs are consuming 4, that you will never get the other 2. As long as one of these is plugged in, you lose the other one. So 1 USB 2 plugs into a header that powers 2. 1 USB 3 plugs into a header that powers 2. But you're only getting 1 out of the plug. That's a manufacturer's choice. It doesn't have to be your choice. And if people would stop buying these, the manufacturer would stop making them. The second thing Corsair did is they placed it on the side. This sucks. Because what if your computer, look, if your computer's facing this way, how do you see where you plug everything in? Right? If my computer faces this way, let's say I was standing over here and the computer faces this way, now my plugs are over here instead of over here. This is the just dumbest thing. So if you put your computer to the right of your monitor, right, then your plugs are right here. But if your monitor is over to the right, so if this is to the left of the monitor, it's jammed between you and your monitor. It's a sticky situation to be in, and you can't see. You have to like crane your head around to look. The USB ports and buttons should be on top or in the front, not along the sides where you can't see it and where it can interfere with, I don't know, maybe the wall. Maybe you've got your computer up against a wall. Now you can't access those ports or switches at all, or it's a space this wide. It's a horrible, horrible design from a thoughtless engineer and a department manager that approved it that has no clue what they're in charge of. And this is a big, big problem in corporate America where they put people in positions based on college degrees and not based on, you know, the person's passion for what they do. I'm a number cruncher. I can crunch numbers for any corporation. I can show you how to save money. What you do for a living doesn't make a matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. I can save you money. And it shows in the products they make. When Corsair makes a product like this, it shows the number crunchers are the ones making the decisions and not the engineers. And it disappoints me because I expect better. Corsair doesn't do this consistently, but the fact that they do it at all is shocking. And the fact that somebody buys them, I'm going to chalk it up to you just didn't know, but I hope you know now. You know I like Corsair, but I don't like everything about Corsair. I want some black screws. There were some black screws that came with that power supply. I think I know where I put them. Here we go. Put the motherboard in. Actually, let me get the umbilicals out of the way because I can already see they're going to get in the way. So I'll remove this wire tie, which has to come off anyway. And I need to pull these umbilicals back to the back of the case. They're just done that way to keep them from flopping around or being damaged in shipping. And now it's time to get them out of the way so we can lay the case flat. While the motherboard is out, I'll grab one of these zip ties right here, and I'm going to tie up the CPU power cable. I don't know where you can see me. I'm going to just try doing it here where you can get a little bit of a glimpse of what I'm doing. I don't even like the direction that this is on. You see the way the cable's being wrapped around the fan? I'm going to turn this so that this cable right here comes out closer to where it's going to end up so it doesn't get caught up in the fan, and it makes cable management a lot easier. And the way I do that is I just turn these little towers in the direction of the arrow. That's what you do to take it off. So remove all these little towers, and we're going to turn them in the direction of the arrow. Then we lift up on each tower individually. And we'll take a look at that thermal compound under there. It's brown, so let's take care of that too. It should not be brown. It should be like a grayish color. I've never seen bronze colored thermal compound. I don't know if that's dust and dirt or if that's some weird thermal compound you put on there, but it does not look like it's factory. I don't know what that is. It looks like chocolate. Doesn't smell like chocolate. Well, taste it. No, I'm not tasting it. So I've got some Q-tips and denatured alcohol back here so we can clean these surfaces. And then let's grab some thermal paste. We'll use Mitch's MX4 that he left here. Well, he left it here on purpose. This is how the community helps each other. Mitch left this to help another community member that he doesn't even know. So I'm going to wipe down the surface of the CPU with this denatured alcohol on this Q-tip, and the alcohol is going to evaporate. And if you want to use the dry side of the Q-tip to rub around the CPU, that's fine as well to help get up any extra debris. We want the two surfaces that are transferring heat to be as clean from any contaminants as possible so that that heat transference can be optimal and work to its best ability. And, you know, go a couple different directions to make sure that you get as much of the contaminants off of it to make that surface as pristine as you can make it. And then I'm going to grab a little rubber glove here to spread some thermal compound with, because that's the way I do it. And I don't care the way anybody else does it, because I don't have to support their computers and they don't have to support mine. Now, if somebody would like to come over here and take all of the customer calls that come in, resulting from the way they want to build it, I'm totally fine with that. But if I'm the one that's going to get the customer calls, then I don't care about the way anybody thinks of the work I do, other than my customer. So if you're not my customer, it's none of your business. All right. So I'll just put a little thermal compound on there. It didn't take much. And we get that finger painted on there nice and smooth. You're just gonna put a nice coating of thermal compound just like you're painting, and you don't want to see through it. You should not be able to read the numbering of letters on the CPU. And what I've been doing lately is I like to make it a little tacky instead of smooth, and that way when you put the heatsink on top, it smushes all that down, and there's those people will talk about air bubbles and nonsense like that. It pretty much eliminates that possibility. That's all you have to do is just tap on it, make that thermal compound have little peaks and valleys around it. And then when we squish the CPU heatsink and fan back on it, it'll smooth all that out. turn these little towers back in the opposite direction of the arrow so that it will snap back in. And then we'll go right here to this position, and we're going to click one corner, other corner, this corner, right here. Oh, is this one not going to go in? Go right here, and then we're going to go right. Come on. This one's not wanting to. So it's always the last one that wants to give me grief. And I hear my phone going off back there. Oh, there it is. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to take this cable and I'm going to zip tie it right now before I put it in the board. And we'll put this right through here, like so. I think I could use two. I'll put one here, and I will put one right here. Just like that. And I will click and click, get these little pigtails off of there. Now I can install the board into the case. Let's make sure all the standoffs are in the right positions. I need to have these two on the bottom and those two in the middle. Let's see, the board's got to go this way. And it looks like one of these is in the wrong position. Maybe. Definitely. Yeah, I see what's going on here. So I need to move a standoff for this board to fit. So I'm going to grab my little 5mm tool here, and we're going to go right to this corner and take out this back corner one, and it's got to be moved up because this board's not long enough to reach all the way down to where those standoffs are. This is a micro ATX board, and the standoffs were placed for a much longer board. So those standoffs that were going to the bottom of the longer board need to be moved to line up with the bottom of this board. And the little holes in the back of the motherboard tray, some of them are labeled M, and that stands for micro ATX. And I'm just moving those two standoffs and raising them to where the next hole above them is. I'd show you, but then I'd have to kill you. So we'll just go right in here, line that right up with the IO shield. And we should see all of the standoffs through the mounting holes, and I do. And one of the standoffs has a post that's holding the board in place. So we're going to need 5 mounting screws. So here I've got the 5 mounting screws. Well, more than 5, but I'm just going to need 5. And this is a difficult thing to do with the case standing upright, which is why it's hard to film it for you guys. And I am running late today, so I don't have time to go through much of the detail in this. But I've covered it so many times before. It's not like it's anything new. 2 more. So this is another problem with this case, and that is I cannot get this driver in where I need it to go. So I'm going to have to do this by hand. And now that I've done that, maybe I can try and get it in there now, but I've got the screw started at least, and I can try and put this in here. Give me just a second. Let me see who's trying to call me. No idea who that is, but I think I have to unfriend somebody. So that gets the board installed in the case. And let's take a look at what that looks like. I'll show you what it looks like. That's the board in this case. Just like that. That's what it's going to look like. It's a much nicer build. There's a lot more room to work inside of it. And you can see just how much difference the case can make on your build. You know, it's incredibly a simple design. And it can make all the difference in the world for a different build experience, you know, more positive build experience. So let's take a look in the chat. What do we want to know? Is Jason in the chat? Does Jason want to talk to me? I have to wrap up today's stream. I am an hour behind right now, so I need Jason to talk to me right now so I can wrap this up. So, somebody, Jason, you need to talk to me here. You need to talk to me in chat. I'm not picking up that phone when I'm live. I need everybody in the chat room to stop. I just want to talk to Jason. If you're not Jason, please stop flooding my chat room. Because if Jason's trying to talk to me right now, what you're doing is making it worse. You are causing any response from other people to scroll off of the screen before I can see it. Think about how you're helping, because that's not helping me. I need you to stop. So, Jason, talk to me. What do you want me to do? Everybody, please stop chatting. I normally like it when you chat, but for right now, I'd like to talk to Jason. Would you offer me that courtesy? All right, Jason, you have my attention. What is it you would like me to do? Is that case too much of a pain? No, no. So the deal with the case is, I don't like if I was advising you on a case, if you said what case would I recommend, I would tell you to buy a case that has two USB 3.0 ports on the front or on the top. If you wanted an optical drive, then make sure you get a case that can support an optical drive. This case does not. As for the quality of the case, it's a good, solid case. I'm not going to bend it like that other one. There doesn't seem to be any place in here for a 2.5-inch solid state drive. I guess you can screw them to the back. It's kind of a dumb design. This feels like one of the cheapest Corsair cases you can buy, but it's still a world better than the old case. This is an improvement for you. But I just want you to be aware that this limitation here means we're going to take up a USB 3 header and a USB 2 header, which would give you 4 ports, but you're only going to get 2 in return. Shipping a case back is often as expensive as the case itself. So at this point, I don't know what you want to do unless you have purchased from somebody that will offer you a free return, because this case will probably cost upwards of $30 or $40 to ship back. But I don't know what you want to do, Jason, because I'm not the one that has to live with it. you know, as a case, it's going to function as a case. But, you know, will it meet your needs? Will it meet your expectations? And I guess, you know, you didn't even talk to me about this, Jason, before you ordered it. You just ordered it. And usually when people do that, they're usually disappointed. You know, Franklin did that too. And Franklin, you know, paid the price in time. It took a long time to undo that mess that was completely avoidable. And Franklin did it twice. So I'm asking you guys, if you're going to work with me, let me do my job and talk to me, and let's work together before sending me any parts. Don't just send me parts. Work with me. And if we agree on parts, don't go changing those parts without talking to me about it first, because it can be very expensive and extremely time consuming. Franklin would have gotten his system 3 weeks earlier if he'd have followed the plan, right? And so let's learn from that. It's not here to insult anybody, but it's a recent example that's fresh on my mind. And that's the only reason why I bring it up. And nobody's happy about it. Franklin wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. So you did the same thing, Jason. You sent me parts without telling me what you were sending me. And I have to assume you knew what you were sending me. That's why you did that. So here we are. Now what do you want me to do? Nothing to apologize. Jason, you have nothing. Look, neither you nor Franklin have anything to apologize for, except if you're like, hey, is my system done? Is my system done? Is it done now? How about today? Do you have it ready today? How about now? Is it done? No. Because all of these things slow it down. It means there are other builds I have to do. So if I don't get yours done in the time frame that I've scheduled, I need to put it back in line to keep everybody else on schedule behind you. That's all. But then don't get mad at me because you have to wait longer or that you have to spend more money, because I didn't play a role in that. I'm just trying to help and not causing any inconvenience to all the people waiting behind you. I'm not mad at you one bit. I wasn't mad at Franklin. I was frustrated because I wanted to get it done. And he was anxious because he wanted his computer, and he just got it today. He could have got it 3 weeks ago if he'd have just stuck with the parts we talked about. When you start just doing things without talking to me, then I have to deal with what you sent me when I have time. So if you want to send the case back, or if you want to swap the case out for different, I don't mind one bit. I might not be able to get to it for a week or two, but it doesn't bother me. But one way or the other, I am 20 minutes over where I needed to stop, and I'm already running late. So maybe Jason, you and I can pick this up in an email, and we'll decide how we want to progress. In the meantime, these are all valuable lessons, I think. You know, in the good way, they're lessons where people can say, you know, you shouldn't just be pulling the trigger on that mouse because you're anxious, because it'll make you wait longer and maybe cost you more money. You could talk to Catherine in the chat room. She'll help you pick parts. If you're working with me, of course, it's in my best interest to make sure we pick the parts that are right for you. So you'll be happy when you receive the system. I want you to be happy. And I want to be able to schedule you and get you done on time. And how can I do that if you're surprising me with parts? I've never worked on this case before. I've never seen it before. And as I'm working on it, I'm pointing out certain things that bother me. It doesn't mean it's going to bother you. It just means it bothers me. If you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not the one who has to live with it. But again, it's still way, way better than what you had. I'm grateful. Believe it, I'm grateful. I'd rather I worked on this than on what you had. There's no doubt about that. But if I was helping you select a case, I would have warned you away from this case for the reasons I've already mentioned. But that, I'm not the one who uses it, and I'm not the one paying for it. Jason says he'll email me. Perfect, perfect. So we have about 1,120 people watching. I hate to leave when we have such a big audience, but I just have other people waiting. I don't know what else to say. That's how life is. I'll give a shout out to everybody who's contributed here. So let's see. Dad Boy contributed $2 twice. Thank you. Steve Caruso contributed $25. Thank you to Steve. Matt Foster has contributed £5, and X246869 contributed $8.69 Canadian. Arlington Douglas contributed $2. And then, of course, let's see, David Penny contributed $10. He goes, here's to put towards your new super fridge. Great, I just need about 1,000 more donations like that. No, 200 more. 200 more? I got to work on my math. 2,600 more. No, 260 more. Yeah. Anyway, so 260? No, 260. Never mind, it's fun. Thank you. Elliot Fleming, thank you for your contribution. Tron, thank you for your contribution. Madi, always good to see you, Madi. Madi called me earlier today, and I was really in a hurry. And I know I kind of came off rude, but I got all these people waiting, and it's like, do you wait to call somebody back for a few days when you have time? Or do you call as many people back as you can and try and, it'll be less you have to do tomorrow, but then they're kind of surprised that you seem rude because you're like, hurry up, what's your question? Let me help you. I got other people to help. It's a tough call for me. Otherwise they go, I called you 3 days ago. Yeah, well, I didn't have time to call you. Well, it was just a quick question. Oh, well, if it's a quick question, then let's do it now so I can hurry up, answer your question, and call the other person. That's a good problem to have. It's good to be busy. Comer Lloyd has contributed $10. He says, what would you charge to fix my computer? If you ship the computer to me, I don't charge anything. You would need, if it needs parts, you'll have to pay for the parts, but I won't charge you any labor, but you will have to pay for the shipping back. So the shipping to me and the shipping back, I'll make my money on the video I make from it, if you permit me to film that repair. Matt Foster has contributed £2. Thomas M. contributed $5. Love you and the community being here and sharing information. Thank you, Thomas. Paul Newman, it looks like Comer Lloyd again, STS Tech, David Pounds, Tony Wallow, John Stellick, John Pamias, David Penny, Mark Stevens, Richard Padilla, Steve Caruso, Jason Wyrick, Steve Stealth Mode, Michael Lee, Jason Panariello, Sean Jimenez, Tony Wallow again, Stephen Sheik, Bill Ottinger, Ben, David Penny, Rick Hubbard, and the very first contribution that kicked us off this afternoon is Winston Ng. Lou, thank you guys so much. Thank you for being a part of the community and for being supportive and understanding what it's like on this side of the tech bench. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to help as many people as I can help, getting it done right the first time for the least amount of money as quickly as possible. So people that want to hang out and they want to chat, they want to talk for 2 hours, I love doing that, but I can't right now, because when I do that, it means all those people back there are like, why are you taking so long? I've been waiting. So I'm either being rude to them or I'm being rude to the other person. I'm like, I got to figure out another way to say, hey, I have to get right to business. Let's get this done. And kind of like McDonald's, you're not sitting there at the counter having a political discussion or argument with the cashier. You got people waiting behind you hungry, wanting to order their food. And it's not fast food if they're waiting. And that's all it's about. And when business slows down and I can breathe, then those kind of conversations are always welcome. But there are other times when it's like, I can't do that today. But I can help you. I can get right to business and I can help you. And I can't win. So I'm either rude because I didn't call back, or I'm rude because when I called back, I was abrupt. I'm trying to figure that out. So hopefully people understand that. It's absolutely nothing personal. And that doesn't include all the emails I respond to, all the Facebook comments. It's like a never-ending wave, but I always try to reply to people, even if it's just a thumbs up or an okay. I think it's better than being ignored. Jason says November was his deadline. So Jason isn't in any hurry at all. He's like, man, if you get this done before November, I'm cool. Nobody ever says that. Nobody ever says, take your time. Jason, you're one of the first ones. But that doesn't mean I'm going to. I'm going to take care of you in the order that I received your computer. I had an opportunity to work on it today. I'm very grateful you sent it to me and you let me share your build. I think it says a lot about you that you're willing to share that and accept the criticisms about what didn't make sense to me. But that's how we learn. Don't be hurt by it. It's not personal. It's how we learn. You go, look, okay, If you want to do this again, don't do it that way, do it this way. And I think if you did it that way, you wouldn't send it to me for repair. But if you want to keep sending me stuff for repair, I'll keep taking it. But I'm a terrible businessman, right? I don't want you to. I want you to be self-sustaining. But if I can't see what you did, then the only way is for you to send it to me, right? Since we're far apart. And then I can show you, and then everybody can benefit from it. And hopefully my 28 years in the business professionally can make more sense. Like you can be like, oh yeah, I didn't think it through like that. It makes sense. He's been there and done that. I never have. At least I hope. I hope that's what's being conveyed. So, yeah. So thank you guys so much again for joining me. I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And again, yeah, it doesn't make anybody dumb. It has nothing to do with being dumb. Let's make sure I'm just responding in the chat. If you're hearing what I'm saying as an insult, then you aren't hearing me. I'm trying to help. But if I can't point out what you're doing wrong without insulting you, I don't know how you're going to learn, right? Like, it's not my intent to insult you. It's my intent to say, don't do it like this because these are the results. Do it like this and get these results instead. But some people hear that and they go, oh, so you're calling me stupid. No. If I was calling you stupid, I would do this. You're stupid. See that? You see the difference? Do you see the difference? Can you hear the difference? I've never done that. I won't do that to anybody. I wouldn't want it done to me. So I won't do that to anybody. And furthermore, there's absolutely nothing to be gained. There's nothing to be gained by insulting anybody. And just trying to educate people and point out what they did wrong is not an insult. It's done as a way to teach. Okay, that's all it is. It's just teaching. Now, after I teach, if you do it again, then I might call you dumb. No, I still wouldn't call you dumb. I wouldn't. So thank you guys so much. I do appreciate you hanging out with me today. And I hope to see you all again tomorrow. I'm going to try and broadcast tomorrow afternoon. I've got a lot of work to do. Maybe a new build tomorrow. I think that sounds pretty good to me. Thank you guys so much. All my friends in blue, of course. People who have not yet turned blue, I hope to turn you blue very soon. I am running now 27 minutes behind. So that person is going to be like, what took you so long? I was talking to a bunch of people. Oh, you weren't talking to me. That's my time. It's good to have these problems, and honestly, it's good. So I'll see y'all again tomorrow afternoon. Until then, bye for now.